In this video, we're going to show you how to replace the water pump on your Ford 500 located on the top side of your engine. Using an 8mm wrench or a socket, go ahead and loosen the nut on the ground terminal. Once that's loose, give it a little wiggle and work that off. On the bottom side here, we're going to use our Phillips head screwdriver to remove the core of the plastic retainer, and then use your trim tool to pop out the rest of it. I'm going to repeat for the other two. I'm going to go ahead and just push those up and make sure that's... So now that we have the plastic pins out, this will drop away. Now before we loosen the drain here on our cooling system, we want to have a catch can or a bucket underneath to catch the coolant that is going to come out. This is a 19mm. Now the drain opened up, we're going to wait till our cooling system is completely drained out, and then we'll continue from there. At this point here, we'll go ahead and screw in the drain. You just want to do that by hand, just snug that down. You don't have to use any special tools at this point here because it's pretty much drained out for the most part. I'm just going to give that a quick wipe. You'll line this up and install one of our clips. I'm going to repeat this right across. And we'll get the third one in here. We're going to remove our air intake box here as well as their intake tube. Start with your flathead screwdriver, loosen the hose clamp up by the throttle body. Remove this vacuum hose here. There's a little green plastic tab. I'm going to pull that down and pop this off and swing that aside. There's a vacuum hose right here. Simply twist this out. Set that aside. Disconnect the mass airflow sensor right here. On the bottom side, there's a little red lock or a tab. You're going to pull that up, unlocking it, and then press on the tab right beside it. On the box itself, unclip this. And we'll pull this whole unit out. Remove this 8mm bolt. And the box itself is pressed into two rubber grommets underneath. So you're going to grab this here and wiggle it. Pop that up and out. You just separated the two plastic pins from the grommets. And on our thermostat housing right here, we need to disconnect all of the hoses from the unit. You can use a pair of pliers. Remove these hose clamps. Now we do have a catch can underneath to catch any residual coolant that might leak out. we do have our catch can underneath to catch this residual coolant coming out. And use our pliers just to loosen the hose. Just give those a little twist, break them free. Now going inside here, there were two 8mm bolts. I'm going to go ahead, loosen and remove those. The bottom hose I'm having a hard time getting off, so what we'll do is we'll remove these two here, and then we'll be able to twist the thermostat housing and get that hose separated from the bottom. Use your 8mm and an extension. Let's go ahead and loosen these two. And twist it off. Now in order to remove your water pump, there's going to be 4 main bolts. There's one in the center, and then there's 1, 2, 3. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my crayon and I'm going to mark the ones that we're removing. Using your flathead screwdriver, loosen the hose clamp on the backside hose on the water pump. Slide that back. I'm going to use my pliers here to go ahead and break this free. You can use a pick to get underneath the edge of that hose. Just kind of work your way around the perimeter. Try not to damage that hose or poke holes in it. But what we're doing is we're just breaking the seal. Using your 8mm socket here and ratchet, let's remove the bolts that we had marked. Let's remove the center bolt here. That is a 13 millimeter. And slide that water pump off. Now there's probably going to be some coolant left in this here, so be careful when you tip this. This is going to spill out coolant. Now when installing the new water pump, the center bolt and seal come with it. Just lower this down into position. Line this up. Then once you have the water pump lined up with the cylinder head, we're going to get the center bolt started by hand. Now we're not going to use our impact on this here. What we want to do is we're going to start by gently getting that bolt almost all the way in, but we don't want to snug it down yet. Want to make sure that this is still a little bit loose, yet that bolt is not sloppy. Make sure you can pivot that still just a little bit. Our next step is to install the 3 bolts. That's going to allow us to move the water pump and get these 3 bolts started by hand. Now with all of the bolts installed, let's go ahead and torque down this center bolt to 18 foot-pounds. Now we're just going to finish running the 3 longer bolts in. Just snug them gently. Let's torque down these bolts to 89 inch-pounds, not foot-pounds, inch-pounds. Install our rear hose here on the water pump. You want to make sure that's good and snug. Install your thermostat housing. You want to make sure that there is a good O-ring on the inside here, and you can put a little bit of antifreeze on that or coolant to help lubricate that seal. I'm going to line this up, work that into place, torque down those 2 thermostat housing bolts to 89 inch-pounds. Install our hoses. Install your airbox base. Once that's lined up and pressed in, install that 8mm bolt. We'll snug that down into position. Once it bottoms out, just give it a little bit more. Doesn't have to be super tight. Take your air filter, drop that into place. Now, in installing this unit here, you want to make sure that these 3 tabs fit into the airbox base down below. Install the tube on the throttle body. And then you can put on your clips. Let's tighten down the hose clamp on the intake. I'm going to make sure that's snug. You'll feel a resistance in that when you're tightening that. Go ahead and attach your vacuum tubes. This one here, just push it on. You'll hear it click. This one here, just press it in. Mass airflow sensor. Here's that red locking tab, so once we push this on, we're going to push this red tab down and in. That's locked in. At this point here, you can now go ahead and reconnect your battery. Install the ground terminal. Use your 8mm socket to go ahead and snug this down. And once that nut bottoms out, just give it a couple more turns here. You want to make sure it's good and snug, but don't over tighten it. Give it a little wiggle. Make sure that isn't twisting on the post, and you're all set. I'm going to open up our expansion tank cap. Set that aside. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add the appropriate recommended coolant into this tank here, and we're going to fill it up to this seam on the tank. Now once our expansion tank is at that seam there, let's go ahead and put that cap back on. Now on our thermostat housing right here, there's going to be a little metal clip. I'm going to use my pliers, pop that horseshoe clip off. I want to pull this cap off of here. And just held on with a rubber O-ring that's on there. Set that aside. Going to use our funnel. We're now going to fill up the entire system here until we're topped off. Now that we're filled up here, go ahead and remove that funnel, set that aside. We're going to install our cap here. Install your clip. And wipe that down. Now at this point here, you want to hop into the vehicle. Start it up. You want to let it run for about 10 minutes or so. Make sure that your heating system is on high. At that point, you want to wait for hot heat to come out of the vents. If it doesn't, go ahead and take the car for a road test, burp out any air bubbles there. Come on back, check out the expansion tank, make sure that that coolant is still at the seam level. If it isn't, you can go ahead and fill that reservoir. Do not open up this cap here, the bleeder cap. if the engine is hot. You need to make sure that the engine has cooled down, and then you can open this up. Otherwise, once everything is topped off, go ahead and take it for another road test. You should be all set.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.